점수 잡는 hackers.
Hi, welcome to the SAT program. This is the internet lecture on the 8 practice tests, and it's on the essay section. Now, we're going to look at the 8 practice tests together, and the first practice test today is going to be Nicholas D. Kristof, that's the author's name, and the title, Poverty's Poster Child. Keep in mind that this is volume 2. Now, before we actually look at the actual passage, they're going to give you a little bit of information in the beginning. So it's going to tell you who the author's name is, as I said before, Nicholas Kristof, and they're going to give you the title, Poverty's Poster Child, but they give you a few more hints. It was written, or it was copyrighted 2012 by the New York Times. Now, you're going to want to mention that this is an article, but you're going to want to be a little bit more specific. Like, is it a newspaper article or is it a magazine article? You can definitely tell that this is a newspaper article because of the word New York. Now, if it has a location name, that means it's a newspaper article. So what are other newspapers? Like not only the New York Times, the Los Angeles Times, or the Washington Post. So you might want to mention that this is a newspaper article, and it was originally published May 10th, 2012. Now, today we're going to look at our goals. We're going to read the passage together, and while we read the passage together, we're going to look for the main points. We're going to then look for analysis, and while we analyze, we're going to look for 3 rhetorical techniques. The first one, stylistic elements. Specifically, we're going to look for pathos. Another word for pathos is emotion. So Kristof is going to use emotion, or he's going to instill empathy, he's going to instill sympathy in the audience to actually prove his point. Next, he also uses reasoning, commonsensical arguments or logical arguments to prove his point. And also, he uses evidence. Specifically, he uses authority. Now, authority or appeal to authority can also be referring to specific organizations, specific companies, or even experts. So you're going to look for expert names and expert organizations. And then he also uses statistics, referring to specific numbers. These numbers can be percentages, they can be dollar signs, they can be any kind of numbers. And at the end, we're going to do a quick review of the reading and the analysis. Now, before we actually read the passage together, if you haven't already, make sure that you read it on your own first. Try to find the rhetorical devices, trying to find the main points on your own. Once you read it on your own, come back to this lecture and let's look at it together. All right, so if you read it, let's look at the prompt. Now, we're going to look at the prompt. This prompt is given at the end of the passage. And they're going to give you the directions on how you should write your essay. But keep in mind that this is given at the end, but you should actually read it first. You should read it before the passage because it's going to give you a lot of hints. Now, let's just look at what I highlighted, the main points. They're going to give you the author's name, Nicholas D. Kristof. You can call him Nicholas Kristof. You can take out the middle initial. That's not going to be a problem. And once you refer to his full name in your actual essay, you can just call him by his last name, Kristof. So always remember full name and then last name. If you're not sure if it's a male or female, look for the his or her. Obviously, the his means that Nicholas Kristof is a male. Look for the main point. After that, this is going to be your main point, and actually this is probably going to be the biggest hint that you're going to get on the SAT essay portion. So read it again and again. Make sure that you understand it. Make sure that you even paraphrase it. Let's read it together. The dire poverty in Native American reservations necessitates fundamental changes. Now, we're going to do some paraphrasing a little bit later, so just keep this in mind. And at the end, as I said before, refer to his last name as they also did in the instructions. Now, if we look at this last part here, your essay should not discuss your own thoughts or feelings about Kristof's claims. This being that you should not use the word I, like I agree or I disagree, because your opinion is not important in the SAT essay. You're only going to explain his points, Kristof's points. Instead, it should explain how Kristof constructs his argument in order to persuade an audience. So you need to talk about why Kristof uses certain techniques and devices to prove what claims and what main points. All right, then let's look at this claim that was given in the prompt, and then let's actually look at how I got my paraphrasing. So my first sentence, instead of writing, fundamental changes, I changed it to basic changes, are needed to deal with the hopelessness and poverty in America's Indian reservations. Now, I used the term hopelessness and poverty. In the actual claim, it just said poverty. So adding your own words, hopelessness, that can also be paraphrasing. All right, let's look at my next sentence. Native American reservations may need to reduce their populations in order to address their problems. Now, this solution right here, to reduce their populations, that's actually the changes that are needed. All right, then let's go into paragraph 1. Nicholas Kristof starts off his paragraph. This sprawling Pine Ridge Indian Reservation is a Connecticut-sized zone of prairie and poverty, where the have-nots are defined less by the money they lack than by suffocating hopelessness. Now, he uses the adjective, this sprawling reservation. This sprawling means the spreading in an irregular way. Now, he's talking about this reservation that's spreading in an irregular way, and he talks about how the have-nots. Now, the have-nots are people who don't really have much. You can actually refer to them as the poor people. But they're defined less by the money that they lack, and they're defined more by the suffocating hopelessness. Now, he uses this term, suffocating hopelessness. Now, you wouldn't really use this word suffocating, this adjective, with the noun hopelessness, but he does this as a form of diction. So he's using his word choice to prove that these poor people are suffocating and they're really hopeless. And at the same time, he's instilling pathos because he wants us to feel sympathy for the have-nots and these poor people in the reservations. Let's look at paragraph 2. In the national number line of inequality, poor people here represent the other 1%, the bottom of the national heap. Now, he wants to tell us that these poor people, they are at the bottom of the national heap. They're at the bottom of the pile. They're at the bottom of this system. So note that the main point here, the native people or the people in the reservations are at the bottom of society, and this is due to no fault of their own. So it's not because they want to. And again, he uses diction and pathos by using the words, the bottom of the national heap, to really tell us how poor they are and to also instill a type of sympathy in the audience to actually agree, to emotionally agree with his points.